over the Canadian Food Innovation Network's challenge number 5, where we're issuing a call for proposals for disruptive solutions for meeting food and beverage processing challenges. So definitely, I think a hot area of interest, a lot of opportunity in the food processing sector to adapt and integrate new technologies or create new technologies, and certainly, no shortage of challenges. If you are new to CFIN, we're almost at the 2 years old mark in terms of our organization. We are a national not-for-profit. We're member-based. I believe my colleague Jaleh will be posting where you can sign up for membership in the chat. And our membership with our organization is free. And we're seeking to stimulate transformative and transferable innovation across the Canadian food sector. We do that in a couple different ways. One is through funding. So of course, today we're issuing a call for proposals for an opportunity to receive grant funding. But we also do that through fostering connections. We have a team of 5 regional innovation directors working across Canada. We're actually a fully remote organization. We have team members coast to coast. And we're looking to help food innovators and those playing in this sector from farm gate onwards. So we don't do agriculture. We look at everything after the farm to, start circulating those fresh insights, connecting people who may not usually talk to each other, break down some of those silos to help increase the innovation capacity within the sector and hopefully elevate your food businesses. So 3 things you should know about us. So our members are, usually interested in some way in food innovation. Innovation can touch a lot of areas of your business, whether it's product, process, more on the business side, could even be about how you approach your service or your people. So innovation, we look at it pretty broadly. We definitely, obviously, are very interested in innovation that has that tangible IP opportunity or commercialization opportunity. We look at manufacturing, food service, and food retail. So if you're thinking about a project that would primarily impact a farmer or a producer of food, a grower of food, we are likely not your best bet for funding, but we're happy to chat with you about some other organizations who may be better positioned to help you. So we're really looking at, capital F food, right through to getting it into the hands or the plates of consumers. And through a combination of both people, so our team members from coast to coast, but also technology, we have a digital platform called Yodel that's accessible to our members, which is a great place if you're looking for resources or trying to connect, or maybe running into a tricky innovation challenge and want to soundboard or see if you can find assistance. Through those 2 tools, our people and our technology, we're looking to help people matchmake, help people connect to ideas, to new information, and just basically have that rising tide that lifts all boats in terms of the innovation capacity in the food sector. We do, as I noted, we've got a team coast to coast. We have 5 regional innovation directors. If you haven't met them already, I'll show them through our presentation. I believe a few of them are on the call, and I certainly welcome them to also post a hello in our webinar chat. And they're there to help connect you, whether the resource is something that we offer or something that, a college, university, other agency, etc., might be able to help you with. What So what do CFIN members care about? I mean, a lot of things. Innovation is one of those words that, has a lot of potential applications, as I noted, but we have members right across, in that traditional food processing sector, which is obviously a huge hunk of the industry, right into last mile food delivery, biotechnology, product development, packaging. We also have a lot of interest in restaurant technology, although not the focus of this particular call. So if you want to take a look at our projects, we have them listed online, the ones that we've funded to date, and you're certainly welcome to take a peek, and you can see a real broad coverage in terms of what we do. I will note as I sort of jump into the call, in particular, if you do have questions, we have the question and answer box. I suggest you use those. I will try to monitor the chat, but as you can see, there's already some notes being posted, and so it can be a tricky spot to post information like that. So use the questions, and as much as possible, I will try to address them if I see them on that particular slide or at the end. I definitely have time allotted to answer your questions. If your question is very focused on, this is my exact project, and can you tell me, is it a good fit? That's a great question to take offline, and either to bring that to one of our regional innovation directors or our programs team so we can chat with you one-on-one about it. So what is our Food Innovation Challenge? We have 3 programs. Our Food Innovation Challenge is our largest. And there we're looking very particularly for collaborative or consortia projects where a group of partners are coming to the table to help advance a food innovation opportunity that hopefully is, a real breakthrough in addressing key industry challenges. So typically we're looking at solutions that are going to be a new ingredient, product, technology, service, or process. I'd say probably very likely in this case, we're going to be looking at technology or processes that is ripe for further research, development, or commercialization. It's open to any CFIN members. So as I mentioned, membership in our organization is free. It takes about 2 minutes to sign up. Number of other benefits beyond just being able to access funding, but it is a requirement to access funding. So that would be your first step if you're looking at applying to this call. When we look at our Food Innovation Challenge, we have sort of 2 resources. We have the overall program guide. It has things like, what are the requirements for an eligible consortia? What kind of costs are eligible? And how do we fund you? What are our program policies? How do we assess you? And we give an overview of the sort of review process and steps through the application. The call guide is for the specific call. So that really goes into, why are we looking at this? What are we trying to do? What are we prioritizing when we look at the submissions that we'll get? What are the specific application questions, the scoring rubric, and how to use our online platform. So all our applications are submitted online, and I will show you a little bit about how that works as well. So our current call for proposals, we're looking for disruptive solutions to meet food and beverage processing challenges. So we're looking for projects where we have solutions or technology that will assist food processors. And we've also opened it to distribution, knowing that there's a lot of opportunity there for innovation as they seek to alleviate labor constraints, address the opportunity for shelf life extensions, maybe look to add value to side streams or waste products through their processes, look at energy or water usage and reducing it, optimizing their inputs generally to reduce waste, hopefully realize some cost efficiencies, and potentially, are there new technologies for transforming food that are out there that we can help advance? And I think that's one area that sometimes lags behind. We look a lot at automation, but not necessarily new techniques for addressing these sorts of challenges. So those are the sorts of things we think we might see from a call like this and what we're looking for. And in terms of our sort of overall objectives, with all of our Food Innovation Challenge funds, we're looking to de-risk and support the research, development, and industrial demonstration of technologies through our funding. So with our help, you can move through the development process of a new technology or solution. So in particular, we're trying to take solutions that are still in an earlier, what we call technology readiness level. So, technology that still needs to be worked out, to be demonstrated, to be proven on a plant floor or even at bench scale, and then potentially be commercialized at the end of the project. So we're looking at moving those things closer to a demonstrated, well-proven status. We're looking in particular to support solutions that are accessible to small and medium-sized enterprises, in particular the small enterprises. Those of you who have looked at the food processing sector probably know that out of 7,800 establishments in Canada, we have about 91% of them that are under 10 employees. Many of these firms might still be struggling with digitization and automating at a very base level. So interested in seeing how we could add value to those members. So not just about solving the M&Es, multinational type company problems, but how do we make solutions accessible to smaller processors? We're looking to connect and strengthen collaboration amongst private sector firms. I've got some examples on how collaborations or consortia come together and what kind of structures work well for, our type of challenge projects. We're, of course, always looking to create intellectual property that will have an impact beyond just the people at the table and just the timeline for the project. So if you're looking at commercializing a solution that's extremely niche to your particular processing needs, and your intent is to solve that problem and then keep the solution to yourself, it's not a great fit for us given this particular objective. And of course, we're always looking to give Canadian businesses the leg up in terms of their operations and help them compete globally. So our priorities, as I mentioned earlier, we've seen strong growth in the sector. Of course, there's a number of major inflationary pressures, labor scarcity, and we're seeing constrained growth at the very least for many firms, despite the fact that consumer spending remains strong and the nature of the industry is, somewhat recession proof, although maybe not every category in the grocery shelf feels that way. So we're looking to help address these challenges, where we're looking for projects that might fit into one or even more of the buckets below. Certainly, we likely will see some solutions that impact more than one of these areas. So anything to address labor constraints, so automation and robotics, obviously, extending product shelf life. So whether it's novel solutions to just eke out a few more days on a fresh meat or seafood product, for example. How to monetize or valorize waste streams or side streams for food processors. So upcycling, different techniques for managing those types of products. Of course, reducing or reusing your energy inputs, achieving cost efficiencies maybe through a more efficient input utilization. And lastly, adopting, again, new technologies or techniques for food transformation. So, of course, big question, how much funding is available? We fund projects up to 50% as a grant contribution to a maximum of $2 million for a challenge project. We have approximately enough money to support, 2 to 3 projects potentially, depending on what people come in with their requests. Your total eligible costs must be between somewhere in $1 million and $4 million. That can be costs made up by multiple partners. We give our funding on a reimbursement basis. So you have to bridge the project costs. We don't provide advances. And as part of our operation of our programs, we do have a 5% project management fee of 5% of the total eligible cost for CFIN funding. So if you build a $1 million project, it's 5% of that. And this isn't an eligible cost that we pay out of. It's something that you have to pay us as part of an approval. If you're not approved, of course, no cost to participate. So how do our projects work? This is often the thing that most companies struggle with the most when it comes to putting together a challenge project. So we need to see collaborative or consortia proposals where there's a minimum of 2 private enterprises, Canadian private enterprises, who may be sharing intellectual property or costs related to a common challenge or shared opportunities. 2 is the minimum. So I'll give you some examples here. I'm not saying necessarily that we think all the solutions outlined here are innovative. I'm just giving you some examples of how the collaboration piece could work. So don't take this as this is exactly what I'm looking to fund, but what I want you to see is how the relationships are working in these examples are great ways to approach a challenge project. So in my first example, we've got a company with some new vision technology. We've got a firm with expertise in AI and machine learning, and then a testbed partner. And the 2 technology partners are going to work together to integrate their technology. So they've got a reactive learning-based vision system that is going to advance its capabilities as it processes more and more data. And then the testbed who's going to install this, say, on a small line to prove it out and provide it the data. One example. Could have 2 manufacturers working in, let's say, bakery. Both have a similar problem, maybe in proofing, for example, and they want to work with a technology partner to develop, and hopefully maybe that technology partner can commercialize the solution later, and it solves that shared challenge. Upcycling, obviously an area in which you often work with multiple partners. So an upcycling firm partnering with a variety of supply chain partners who are going to take waste products and launch and commercialize a new upcycled product, adding new value to waste. That would also be a really interesting example of a way to approach this. You could have 2 technology firms, robotics and a software firm who are looking to create highly adaptable robots. Maybe they're going to work with a group of small processors to test them. Obviously, an equipment manufacturing firm who makes food processing equipment might have a new novel way of processing food that reduces or eliminates the need for emulsifiers. And they're going to work with, I don't know, a cookie manufacturer to pilot the technology. What we're aiming to do here is grow Canadian technologies and intellectual property to solve sector challenges. This is not a good program for wanting to purchase an advanced piece of equipment out of Germany to bring it and be the first to Canada. Okay, it's not to purchase proven existing technologies. It is to develop novel solutions to industry challenges. So if you have a project where you think, you already know the solution and it's an international vendor and it's just purchasing that asset, feel free to chat with us. We have some other programs we would suggest that you look at for that type of investment, but it's not well suited to our program. In terms of who is eligible, as I noted, it's about collaborative research. So we require that there are shared goals and financial investment by partners. We want multiple unaffiliated organizations who are coming together to achieve a solution. Generally, partners are incurring costs as part of the project, and they might be sharing background intellectual property with other collaborators in order to achieve the objectives. To be considered, all of the projects have to have an industry-led collaboration. So if any of you are joining from a university or college, you are often a great service provider and supporter of these projects, but you are not typically the lead. And often you're not a partner, you want to sell your services and bill some of these businesses for your work. So typically we see a lead applicant and our partners. They all need to be incorporated in Canada. They all need to be members of CFIN. We want to see the participation of at least one small or medium-sized enterprise, so an SME, who's under 499 employees and under 50 million in gross revenues. So 2 of those partners need to be private sector companies. And for those of you who might be aware of us and have accessed some of our programs before, please know that if you are an active lead applicant on a project with CFIN that is approved with a project agreement in place and you haven't yet closed out your activities or submitted your final report, you're not eligible at this time to apply as the lead applicant. So you can come in as a partner, but you can't be the lead. So what is an innovative project? So, we often see really interesting innovations, but I would say what really distinguishes those who end up securing approval are those who are bringing forward a solution that responds to an urgent or critical problem. Ones that offer the opportunity for the solution to not only transform the project partners who are at the table, but the industry as a whole. So there's usually an opportunity beyond just the project partners to commercialize and launch this technology. So again, if you're looking to solve a problem that you specifically have in your food processing plant, and as a result of that solution, you're going to get the leg up on competition, but never share the results, and it's never going to get past your firm, that is not a transformative project. Risky. So we want there to be a degree of technological and innovation risk that then our support is needed. That's where, for example, buying the proven piece of equipment out of Germany and installing it in your facility would probably rank fairly low in terms of risk. And then necessary. We've identified the scope for what we think is necessary and interesting. And I think a big part of what validates whether or not your technology is needed will be reflected in the partners that you're able to bring to the table. If you, for example, can't convince a food processor that the solution that you have is something that they need and can't bring one to the table in terms of a project partner, then that might, demonstrate, for example, that it's not quite as required as you might think it is, or perhaps it's not being articulated well or whatever, but that necessary component is an important piece. So we're looking for projects that are repeatable, that have impact, mutual benefit, and of course, offer the sector value. As I noted, we fund research, development, and demonstration projects. We reference a lot technology readiness levels. We fund projects that are between 1 to 7. Technology readiness is 8 and 9 levels are only considered on a sort of per project basis. And I'll just show you. So here are the 9 technology readiness levels. I would say most of our projects come in at the 3 to 7 stages, or they come in, say, 3 to 5, and they're aiming to get to 7 at the end of the project. 8 and 9, this, for example, would be the purchase of equipment from an international market, one that's already proven as successful, and now you might just be adopting it to your unique needs on your facility. Those don't count quite as the TRLs of 1 to 7. So we're looking to support activities through that active research phase, through basic testing, through to that next simulated environment type testing, relevant environment, and of course, production or operational environment testing. So that's really the kind of activities that we want to support, and why you saw so many of my examples included mention of a test bed partner, so that we make sure we're taking this as close to commercialization as possible, and that you as your consortia come away with good ROI metrics and data about how this performed to then hopefully support, more fulsome adoption at a TRL of 8 or 9 after our project. So what's eligible? CFIN has a pretty broad cost definition. We'll look at salaries and direct labor of the collaboration members. We'll look at consultants and subcontractors. That can include universities, colleges, private enterprises, the direct materials required on the project, equipment required for the project. On an ad hoc basis, we will look at land and buildings. I can tell you we're not likely to help you purchase a brand new facility, but if you need to make improvements to your site in order to install a pilot, for example, we would look at those retrofit costs. And then, of course, travel. We have something in our budget, and you'll see it in the program guide, called indirect costs. Indirect costs is an overhead coverage. We tack on about 55% on top of any of your direct labor costs. So if you build out $1 million in labor, we can tack on up to $550,000 to that for overhead. This is things like rent, high volume consumables, hairnets, test, bolts, safety goggles, whatever you're going to need in the project that's kind of like very difficult to directly attribute to what you're doing, but you kind of consume it through the process of doing the project. That's covered under our indirect policy. So things like laptops or AV equipment or your CEO's salary or your bookkeeper's salary while they help you do the bookkeeping for this. That's all covered under our indirect. So if you build it out as a line item in your budget, but it's covered in our indirect policy, we will be cutting it out. So we won't be paying for your facility lease or rentals or things that fit under our indirect. So I do recommend you read our cost policy in our program guide carefully. We also, are looking to ensure that the costs that you're laying out are actually really necessary for the project. So keep that in mind as you're writing your submission. If you have a large equipment cost, for example, you may want to address in your submission why that's needed and what you're using it for in terms of the R&D. We have an extremely limited ability to fund activities that take place outside of Canada. So if you want to do a pilot outside of Canada, that's very challenging for us. We have a very strict limit on how much we can spend outside of Canada. If you buy a piece of tooling from China and you bring it here, that is okay because it comes to Canada and you use it here. But if you plan on doing any installations outside of Canada or bringing in an international subcontractor or Indian or overseas development team, for example, those costs we have an extremely difficult time funding. So do take a look again at our cost policy just to make sure that you fit that and that you're building out a budget that works well for the rules that we must abide by. And like I said, it's our program guide really does go into that in detail. And I just recommend giving it a quick read before you build out your budget. It'll really help you ensure that you're putting forward items that will cover. We do a two-phase application process. So the first is we do an expression of interest. So we want to see that you meet the eligibility requirements. But we understand, of course, we launch these calls, we give you 4 or 5 weeks to put together a project, and sometimes not everything is polished, I's are dotted, T's are crossed sort of thing. So the expression of interest allows a lead applicant to certify that they do meet the requirements of the program, to provide 500-word responses regarding key areas of their project. You provide an early budget and work plan. You've got to at least have one confirmed partner with a letter of support at this stage. And then you have to provide your financial statements for the lead applicant to the submission. What happens is then we score those expressions of interest against our rubric. And those that move past the expression of interest stage will hear that in about mid-June, and they're invited forward to do a full submission. You get up to 2,000 words per response. we give you some feedback about gaps, things we'd like to see, areas of improvement, concerns we have, items in your budget that aren't eligible. You will then provide a much more detailed budget with cost by partner, and all your partners complete a business profile, which does include financial and business information so that we can make sure that they meet the program requirements. The lead applicant and the partners on these projects generally are incurring some costs each. That's not just one group and then the other two are just there. Generally, everyone has some costs that they're incurring. We don't have a set ratio for what we expect each partner to spend, but we do want to see that each group is meaningfully contributing to the project and not just there as, let's say, a token. And all the partners, as well as the lead applicant, also sign the master project agreement and are required to do reporting. So keep that in mind as you consider a consortia that you might want to build out. And again, if you want to chat with us about what you're thinking about doing, perhaps we can give you some strategies. So key dates, we've opened the call. The application is available online, and I'll show you our system in a second. The expression of interest is due 11:59 p.m. local time. So if you're in BC, it will be 11:59 your time on May 10th. We will then reach out to the successful expressions of interest in mid-June. Full proposals will then be due July 26th of 2023. We're not going to consider any expenses that you incur prior to July 1st, but we will backdate a little bit because this is probably a process then that we'll be announcing the winners in October or so. And you've got to complete your projects no later than March 31st of 2025. So you have just around 18 months. So at the expression of interest stage, our questions, the lead applicant provides a bit of a profile of their organization, including a snapshot of some key details from their last filed fiscal year. You're going to provide a profile of your current and proposed collaboration members, who you might go and ask if you're brought forward to join you. Describe the challenge and what your objectives are. You're going to give us a bit of a methodology, how you're going to approach completing this research project. You're going to explain the innovation that will be developed. I highly, highly recommend you spend a fair amount of time on that section. It is worth 20 full points. Of course, we're interested in understanding what the market opportunity and potential adoption is. We want to know how it aligns with our objectives of our call, another highly scored area. We're looking to understand how you might transfer knowledge or commercialize these solutions that you're proposing to create. We're looking to understand what some of the risks are that you've identified. And then, of course, we're looking for a budget, a work plan, a letter of support from at least one qualifying partner, your financial statements as the final piece. And we get this question every intake, so it's always good to cover. We do not accept late or incomplete expressions of interest. So if you haven't finished your submission by May 10th, unfortunately, that's the deadline. We don't open it up after the fact to any latecomers. Unfortunately, we want to make sure we're treating everyone as equally as possible. So at the full proposal stage, very similar, more detailed items, but very similar responses. And we'll be giving you some guidance based on your responses at the expression of interest stage on some things we think you may want to build out further if you want to score well and potentially secure this funding at the full application stage. So I mentioned scoring a little bit. Here's our scoring rubric that we use for the Food Innovation Challenge. We use it at both the expression of interest and the full application process. At the expression of interest stage, our staff are the ones reviewing and scoring these submissions. I don't recommend you treat the EOI as a very basic submission. It will be very competitive. All our submissions are competitive. Put your best foot forward. Give us as much information as you can and ensure that you demonstrate that you meet the program requirements. And at the we also bring in external reviewers to provide some comments and insights. We don't invite everyone forward to the full application. It's a lot of work to do a full application. We want to make sure we're bringing forward really strong submissions. We give you feedback to those of you that we invite forward, and then our full applications are reviewed by external reviewers, as well as members of our Innovation Advisory Council, and they're looking at things like technical and market opportunity, and all those scores and comments and results get filed up to our Innovation Advisory Council, who will make a recommendation to our board of directors regarding the successful projects. So as you can see here, a couple areas you really want to pay attention to. What are the innovative and transformative aspects of the project? Try and get a good handle on what the competitive landscape looks like. You know, coming into a submission and completely ignoring that there may be others working in this space is not a good idea. Our reviewers will note that, and it is a weakness in many submissions. So on the innovation front, you know, how is your solution different than what exists? What's the impact? You know, is there going to be any intellectual property, etc. So that question is fairly critical. How does it align with the call theme? You know, look at those objectives and identified areas, explain to us how you meet them. We're looking to understand what the benefit and impact is to the food processing and distributing community. And some other areas, ones that are quite well scored, again, around project design. Don't leave out details about your team. Feel free to attach resumes as a supplemental if you like, but we're looking to know that we've got a competent group behind this solution forwarding the project. So I talked a little bit about IP throughout, and then usually once funding gets involved, people start wondering, well, if you help us create IP, do you want to own it? CFIN does not own or have any stake in intellectual property created from its funded projects. We're very interested in it. We think that that's powerful. We want to know that you have a strategy around it. And we have a rule that is forwarded to us by government that we're also required to do, which is that any intellectual property deriving from our projects, that the ownership and exploitation of those intellectual property rights must remain in Canada for a minimum of 5 years after the end of the project funding agreement, which would be 2025 out 5 years. So if this is something that you would plan to sell or exit, keep that in mind. You would need permission from the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development in order to do so. I've never had to go through that process. I do know that, of course, the interest of the Canadian government is not to hamper intellectual property development and commercialization. But of course, with Canadian government funding, we want to ensure that the benefit is felt here in Canada. We're looking for projects where the IP will be disseminated, shared with industry, you know, that other companies could purchase this technology and integrate it into their own facilities, that you might be open to sharing some details, not the confidential, this is exactly the secret sauce, how we did it, but that you'd be open to sharing information about what you've learned and what you've accomplished. Because we want to ensure that that intellectual property helps catalyze, you know, more growth and development in the Canadian food ecosystem. In terms of stacking is the term that's used when you are leveraging not only funds from CFIN on a project, but perhaps you might also have funds from a supercluster or IRAP or MyTax or a provincial program that is helping your organization, and maybe those costs or those grants or tools are helping cover some of the costs that you're including in the project. So that's called stacking. We do allow for stacking up to 75% of eligible project costs. So minimum, you've got to have 25% of your own skin in the game to use our programs. We are looking to understand what programs you would intend to use. We're looking at true grant programs. So if any of you are filing the Can Export program for trade shows, or you're doing shred tax credits. You know, Can Export's not directly related to your R&D project, so I don't need to know about that. And things like your shred tax credit, that doesn't need to be listed on our program. So we're looking at true grants that apply to the expenses that you're including in the submission to us. And if you're at all confused about that, again, great opportunity just to chat with us. I welcome any questions in the question box. I'm seeing a few open ones there, and I will be getting to them shortly. I'm just getting through my last few slides here. So I do encourage you, if you have them, to pop them into the box, because I'll be taking some time to answer them shortly. So if you want to apply, first of all, you've got to be a CFIN member. We've already told you how to go about doing that. All the program details are posted on our website. Your application has to be submitted on our online portal. Our program guide, as I mentioned, outlines all the eligible costs and key rules, and the call guide goes really into detail onto what each question's asking, what we're looking for in that response, and what the scoring rubric is. So that would be first few things. I highly recommend. I always see a lot of people pop into the application portal 2 days before the application is due and start taking a look. I recommend that you get in it right away and start right now. Even if you don't touch it for 3 weeks, go in, look at our system. You know, it is a new piece of technology in terms of writing a grant. Some of you might not be familiar with that process, or, you know, you might not be as technologically inclined. So you might want to go around and just putter in the application, get a sense of it, and then go away and work on all the elements. That would be a piece of advice I'd share with you. We have 5 regional innovation directors across Canada, as I mentioned earlier. I've got Lavina Gully covering BC and I believe also the Yukon. I've got Huba Khatun covering the prairies. I've got Linda Fox in Ontario, Julie Daigle in Quebec, and Tyson McInnes in Atlantic Canada. If you are French speaking and prefer to speak with someone in French, but you're not necessarily in Quebec, Julie is definitely your contact. And please know all our materials and our application form and all of that is also available in French. So you're welcome to submit your application in that language should you so choose. Our website, obviously, cfin-rcia.ca is where you can find under the funding button right here, where you can find out the details about the program. You can join as a member up here under Join CFIN. Once you've joined CFIN, you actually start to see a members only version of the page, which has a link to our programs portal and all that sort of information. One thing I will note to you is that if you sign up for a member on our platform, that the access to our application platform, this one right here, does take about 24 to 48 hours to get you mapped over there, especially if you sign up on the weekend. So it's something that we set up for you. So if you sign up today, your access to the Smart Simple program will likely come again within 24 hours or so. If you do so on a Saturday, you might have to wait till Monday to get access to the application system. All the more reason to do it early. When you arrive here, you'll log in with your email and you'll do, if it's your first time accessing the system, you'll do the forgot password and it'll trigger a password to be sent to you. Once you're in there, how to navigate, you know, I live in this tool, but you may not. So first thing you'll want to do once you've logged in is go in and just make sure you've completed your organizational profile. It's your address, stuff like that. It'll auto-populate into the application. You'll have your contact profile so you can update your phone number or anything like that. And of course, your funding opportunities. This is where you'll see any of our open programs. At the moment, we only have one currently open, and you'll want to make sure you're choosing the food processing challenge. Once you start an application and you press save, you'll find it here and you're in progress. Once you've submitted it, it'll be here. And of course, approved, declined, whatever the outcome is, will be here. Everything below that is for our currently active projects. So I'm going to pop into the questions here. I do welcome any more being posted. If you have If you have other questions, or if you want to be directed to your regional innovation director, innovation@cfin-rcia.ca is the best way to get a hold of the programs team. So let me take a look at these. So one of my first ones is, would you consider indoor vertical farms a fit for this food innovation challenge? No. At this time, CFIN does not fund vertical farms. The reality is that these systems are still on the growing side, even though they are very technologically advanced. But no, it is not something that we currently fund with our available programs. I know that there are some tools through Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, as well as the provincial organizations. We're going to see more money coming out shortly through the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership. So I would recommend perhaps looking at those, but unfortunately, under our current envelope of funds, it's not something that we can cover. Second question, would a company who is researching circular innovation processing for a protein based in an automated facility qualify? Yes, potentially. Again, I'd ask you, to really ensure that you're addressing the element of a transformative impact. So if you're just solving your processing challenges, and then at the end of the project, you've solved that and that's it, there's no opportunity for taking that knowledge or for that equipment or for that IP to be distributed to other organizations, then I would say that it may not score very competitively when we look at the impact to the sector. Obviously, it would impact your business greatly, but the impact to the wider sector or the potential for impact would be low. Are colleges or universities eligible proposed partners at the expression of interest phase? Generally, colleges or universities, typically what we have seen, want to be service providers on these types of projects. So generally, we'll have a company who says, okay, I want to develop this technology and I want to develop it with Carleton University. Well, that's fantastic, except generally Carleton University wants to say, great, we did this research for you and you own the IP, here's our bill. As soon as there's billing in between partners, we don't consider them partners anymore. We consider them service providers. So generally, a college or university is not a partner, they are a service provider. We welcome the presence of post-secondary institutions and academic researchers in our projects, but what we have found is that they typically want to be paid for their engagements because they're not going to own the IP. At which point they become a service provider and not a partner. So they don't meet that the element of being the elements of what a partner would be. So I hope that answers that. It's a bit of a tricky positioning thing. You're welcome to reach out to us more about it. I do not. So do you require proof of contributions from other potential funding programs? No. For example, some people will tell me that they're looking at these programs, but they don't yet have them secured. That's fine. I'm probably looking at more what you have secured at this point, would be what you outline in your sources of funding table in your submission to us. If it's projected, you can certainly let us know that. What I would be probably looking for more than anything is proof of the lead applicant's ability to undertake the costs that they are outlining. And that's usually a trickier thing when we're dealing with earlier stage companies. Canadian subsidiaries of international companies eligible as Canadian partners? Yes, they can be. If they're going to own any IP, just would want to make sure that that IP is owned out of the Canadian subsidiary. Are the costs that you're incurring with this partner Canadian costs or international costs? So it raises some other questions, but I have had Canadian companies with international ownership participate in our programs. For stack funding, must the funding from the other program be confirmed at time of application, or if it's okay if it's still in process? Yes, that's fine. So again, if it's really at a whim stage, you're just starting to talk to IRAP, you may want to leave it out of your expression of interest. If it's more at the confirmed stage or it's something you've got approved, then you may want to indicate that in your budget. Someone's asking about in-kind financial contributions. We do not account for in-kind. In-kind doesn't work under the funding parameters of the federal government who's funded us. So what a partnership might look like, for example, is there's the technology partner who's got the solution and a test bed, and the technology partner is going to incur, let's say, 75-80% of the costs related to the project. It's their labor, the prototype, the materials, travel, blah, blah, blah. And then their test beds got to retrofit their facility with new electrical to install the system. Their innovation lead or science director is going to be working closely with you and have some labor time, things like that. Those costs are actually can be funded through CFIN. So in the same way you're going to build out your budget for, prototyping and building out this unit, your test bed's going to say, well, it's going to cost me $150,000 a year for my science director to be involved, and it's going to be a $100,000 retrofit. So we have $250,000 worth of costs for this project, and CFIN will give them half of that as part of this project, and their payment of the other half of the expenses would be their cash contribution. I hope that clarifies. Again, if you're looking at structuring out your partnership and you're not sure how to do so, have a conversation with us. It's very simple, and we can help you hash it out. Would you consider recycling food waste streams, so post-farm produce and food scraps that help landfill diversion, curbing greenhouse gases, part of this? Yes. Yes, we would potentially look at that. However, we are looking for those impacts to also potentially impact the profitability. So it's more about valorizing those side streams more than it is about reducing food waste in particular. Again, probably something we'd need to talk about to fully understand, and would recommend a conversation to go through that. Someone's asking, would educational and awareness programs qualify? No, they do not. We must do, it must be research and innovation projects, so we cannot do educational or awareness projects. Again, would recommend you look to other funding programs for support in those kind of areas. I'm seeing some other technologies, a technology that is still at TRL 7, unlikely to qualify for this opportunity. It depends. Some technology at TRL 7 is very expensive and hard to demonstrate. And so, it's a significant risky hurdle to take it forward. We'd certainly could consider it. We'd want to know, what exactly at TRL 7 we're supporting and what are the hurdles and what's the potential impact. And of course, you'll be compared against some of the other submissions. And my last question, I think, around if you're providing services to an organization like a large retailer, would this considered be a partner? No, I would say that's a service provider. A partner is someone where, again, partnership is two or more organizations where they're both incurring costs, potentially sharing IP to solve a problem. One might have the solution, one might have the problem. Two companies might have half of the solution, work together to create the solution, pilot it with a test bed, but there's got to be an element of shared cost, shared IP. If you're talking about relationships where you're just getting into paying each other and you want to help offset these costs to each other, it's not well suited to our Food Innovation Challenge program, because we are looking for that element. So I hope that helps. I am not seeing any further questions. And so I see that Jelly's been very helpful in the chat with giving some additional direction. Really recommend, if you want to chat further, to reach out to innovation@cfin-rcia.ca or touch base with your regional innovation director, if that's someone that you know, or if you want to be connected with them, again, we can do that. Really appreciate you joining us. I think this is going to be a super interesting call. We're really looking forward to seeing what Canadian innovations are brought forward through the expressions of interest. And if I can give you one last piece of advice, chat with us, check out the application, read the program guide. You've got 4 weeks at this time to submit that expression of interest. And we're happy to give you direction so you can strengthen your submission as much as possible. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Look forward to seeing what you all have in mind for this call. Thanks so much.